Welcome back to the Deep Dive. So think about last week, ending April 26th, the Jamaican agricultural market looked pretty calm on the surface, right? Just a tiny average price drop, minus 0.13%.
Yeah, deceptively calm.
Exactly, because underneath things were, well, volatile, 34.26% volatility, definitely not quiet.
Mm-hmm. We saw those definite winners and losers. Red sweet pepper up, Scotch bonnet down, hinting at, demand shifts, maybe supply issues.
And some real wild rides for cabbage, the scallion. It really showed you need to be dynamic with pricing.
That's it. That overall average really hid what was happening commodity by commodity. You can't
Right.
just look at the top number.
Okay, so let's move on. This past week, ending May 2nd, we've got the latest summary for Jamaica. What's our mission here?
Yeah.
To really pin down the key changes, see what trends are sticking around or maybe just starting.
Well, the first thing that jumps out is another slight average price dip, minus 0.59%. Pretty small again.
Okay.
But, and this is the big but, the overall market volatility, that's increased. We're now at 39.34%.
Wow. Okay. So up from about 34% last week.
Exactly. So that instability we talked about, it's actually gotten more intense this week, not less.
So much for surface calm. Even if the overall sentiment is still like neutral, that much volatility says there's a lot bubbling underneath.
Precisely. The report uses the phrase significant commodity level movements. That tells you things are really shifting around. And interestingly, it mentions overall supply is balanced, but with localized shortages.
So regional differences might be key.
Could be playing a big part, yeah. Driving some specific price moves.
All right, let's get specific then. Who were the big winners? Which prices really climbed this week?
Leading the way, no contest, is tomato Plummy. A huge jump, 40.55% up.
40%, wow.
Yeah, bringing the average price to $267.96 JMD per kilogram. Now, when you see that, the report points to demand and potential supply constraints.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Right, could be weather, could be demand, maybe both.
Could be. And the fact that its cousin, the salad tomato, is also way up suggests it might be a broader tomato issue, maybe blight, maybe, like you said, strong tourism demand pulling supply.
So salad tomato was up strongly too.
Oh, yeah. Up 25.12%, averaging $488.96 GMD per kilo. Seeing both Plummy and salad rise like that, it really underlines a trend there. Big opportunity, potentially.
It definitely sounds like it. Okay, what else? Any other notable risers?
Broccoli. That had an impressive gain, 19.84%. And look at the average price, $1,601.37 JMD per kilogram.
Oh, whoa, that's a high price point.
It really is. And the report notes it has moderate volatility, which is interesting for such a high-value item. Might be worth looking into, especially targeting those urban markets.
Right, you mentioned Kingston and St. Catherine. We'll come back to that. Okay,
Yeah.
any other winners?
Yep. Also saw pineapple sugarloaf up a healthy 14.77%, averaging $458.33. And cauliflower, too, with solid growth, 12.55%, hitting an average of $923.27.
Okay, so a bit of a mix there. Now, always got to look at the flip side. Which commodities saw prices drop this week?
Well, the biggest drop belongs to sweet pepper yellow, a really sharp fall, down 30.9%.
30%? Ouch. What's the price now?
Down to an average of $803 JMD per kilo. And remember, red sweet pepper was a winner last week, so this is a big swing for the pepper category.
Yeah, that's a dramatic turnaround. Definitely some pressure specifically on the yellow ones.
Seems like it. Next up, Sorrel. That saw a pretty significant decrease too, down 23.08%, averaging $996.27.
Okay, nearly a quarter drop. The advice there is probably pretty clear.
Reduced stock, yeah. Seems wise with a drop like that.
And what about Scotch Bonnet? That was all over the place last week.
Still volatile, unfortunately, for sellers.
Yeah.
Hot pepper, Scotch bonnet, it fell notably again, down 19.79%, now at $924.55 per kilo.
So it really keeps bouncing around. That need for careful inventory management is critical.
Absolutely. And maybe that idea from last week about processing excess into sauces or powders, even more relevant now, perhaps.
Makes sense. Keep the value somehow.
And it wasn't just yellow sweet peppers feeling the pressure. Red sweet pepper, which, like we said, was up last week, took a substantial hit this week, down 16.35%.
Really? So the whole sweet pepper category basically reversed.
Pretty much.
Right.
Red's down to $781 JMD per kilo. So yeah, yellow and red both down significantly. It points to maybe a broader oversupply or cooling demand for sweet peppers right now. Thinking beyond just local sauces, maybe dried flakes, natural colorings for export. Could be worth exploring.
Interesting angle. Okay, who else is on the decliners list?
Rounding out the top 5 decliners was string bean. Saw a considerable decrease, 13.96%, averaging $610.29 per kilogram.
Okay, so clear stories emerging. Tomatoes flying high, peppers not so much. What are the sort of key takeaways, the actionable stuff?
Well, number one has to be that surging tomato market. Plummy and salad varieties, huge increases. Linked to demand, maybe supply issues. That spells opportunity, a big one, for growers who can meet that demand.
Right. Ride the wave. And the opposite for peppers.
Yeah, pretty much. The consistent fall across yellow, red, and Scotch bonnet, that screams potential oversupply. So that recommendation to process the excess, find value-added routes, seems like a really smart move to, avoid just losing money on unsold stock.
Definitely better than letting it rot.
Yeah.
What else should folks be thinking about?
Well, the speed of the drops for sorrel and yellow sweet pepper. It just highlights how fast you need to move sometimes, shifting inventory quickly, avoiding getting stuck with too much stock of declining items. That seems crucial.
Agility is key. Okay. And broccoli, you mentioned that earlier.
Yeah, broccoli stands out. High value, moderate volatility, according to the report. And that specific idea of exploring urban markets like Kingston and St. Catherine, that lines up with the regional price data and could offer, good returns.
Targeting specific high-value markets makes strategic sense. Now, there was also mention of broader risks.
Oh, absolutely. The report flags weather volatility and, importantly, the approaching hurricane season.
Yeah.
That adds a whole other layer of risk.
Right. Always a factor.
And it just makes having a strategy for your inventory and maybe even risk management even more important, especially for those volatile items like Scotch bonnet. Maybe looking into, forward contracts, financial hedges, something to lock in a price, even if it's not the peak, because things can turn so fast.
That's a really critical point, especially heading into hurricane season. Adds so much uncertainty. Okay, let's quickly touch on those regional prices you mentioned. Where were the highest averages?
Highest average prices were found in Kingston and St. Andrew. That's $841.52 per kilo, and St. Catherine at $794.39 per kilo.
Okay, so those urban or near urban centers commanding top dollar suggest strong demand or maybe better logistics.
Could be either or both. Definitely areas producers might want to target if they can get product there efficiently.
And volatility. Where was the most price fluctuation regionally?
That would be St. Catherine. It stands out dramatically with 193.67% volatility.
Whoa. Nearly 200%. That's incredible.
Yeah, it indicates a region with massive price swings, huge potential for gains, but also significant potential for losses. Very high risk, high reward environment there, it seems.
Wow. Okay, traders there need nerves of steel. Yeah. So let's just quickly sum up this week then. Market down slightly overall, but hiding some really big opposing movements underneath.
Yeah.
Tomatoes way up, peppers generally down, and that overall volatility, it's actually ticked up.
That's the picture. The contrasting fortunes really show how dynamic this market is. And that increased volatility means everyone needs to stay sharp, make smart decisions.
Right. So here's something to leave you with. Thinking about this rising volatility and, the hurricane season always looming, what kind of innovative strategies, maybe things beyond just the usual farming and trading, might Jamaican agriculture need to build more resilience, ensure we have stable food supplies, stable livelihoods? Feels like maybe the old ways aren't quite enough on their own anymore,